Good morning, everybody. So today we have Novalene Thurston coming to talk to us about Homegrown National Park. Sorry about that. Yep. Thanks, Novalene.
Okay, thank you. I'm very pleased to bring you this topic today because I think it is really very important, and I think especially for those of you that moved here from a more urban place. You know, if you used to be a subdivision person and now you're out in the country, I think that what we're saying today is especially going to resonate with you. This is a concept that I have been kind of doing this without knowing I was doing it, and perhaps you have been too. Today, we will learn a little bit of the history of the American environmental movement, because understanding a little bit about where we came from always helps us know where we are and where we want to go. We're also going to consider the changing concept of what a yard is, that word yard, and what that means, and to verify the importance of individual actions on the environment, and perhaps to identify some key actions that you might already be taking or might want to take to become part of this idea called a Homegrown National Park. First of all, just a little bit of an overview of what the American environmental movement really involves. I always love the quotation there of, if I have seen further than others, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants. That is true in so many areas of science. So who are some of the really notable people in the American environmental movement, and how do we build on what they brought to us? We really need to go back to about the 1850s if we want to look at someone who was kind of the beginning, and it's Henry David Thoreau. Now, you might associate him with Walden Pond. If they hadn't made a movie about Walden Pond, younger people probably wouldn't know him at all. But he was about a new way. And of course, he was from the extreme East Coast of the United States. In the 1890s, we moved to California. We moved to the West Coast. And we come across a gentleman named John Muir. Now, if you're going to associate him with something in particular, it might be the founding. He was an influencer of presidents. He loved the California environment, the beautiful areas of California, and he understood the value of places like that to the country as a whole. As we move into the 20th century, the federal government is growing. The idea of national parks and federal lands is growing. The number of employees in what we might call the Park Service is growing. And here we find a gentleman by the name of Aldo Leopold. Now, if you've ever read anything by Aldo Leopold, it is probably a collection of essays that became very widely known, and that is Sand County Almanac. But probably the most important thing that Aldo Leopold wrote was in essence a textbook for game management. He was an employee of the National Park Service out in Western United States. And just about everything we know and do about game management traces back to his ideas. And one thing that helps us understand some of the principles that he put forth, he had this little list of tools of the land manager: the axe, the match, the plow, the cow, and the gun. And when you think about what we do today in land management, these are the symbols. If we're going to be using a cut stump method of controlling invasive plants, what are we using? We're using the axe. If we're going to do control burns to maintain our native prairies, we're using the match. If we forget about the importance of grazing animals in managing wildlife, we have forgotten that we need to use the cow, and so forth. So people who study game management today still go back to Aldo Leopold's basic textbook on what to do and how to do it. In my time, this is the first of these people that influenced me directly. Rachel Carson was a unique person. She was a biologist, but she was also an excellent writer. And she began producing widely read books about nature. Her third or fourth book it was that changed the nation. It was published in 1962, and it was called Silent Spring. She had studied the effects of insecticides on bird populations. And she wrote this book in such a way that anyone could understand it. It became a bestseller, and is probably, if you wanted to pick out one pivotal book that changed the direction of American thought about the environment, this is it. Silent Spring, 1962. How many of us enjoyed watching David Attenborough's TV programs? Hands in the air. I mean, how many of them have we seen? Do you realize that he's 99 years old? I started using them in my biology classroom when they first came out. And I saw the importance and the effect that they had on kids that did not have a personal knowledge of the world of plants and animals. So David Attenborough was another person who made nature accessible to the general public. Well, that's fine, but what is out there today? Who is it right now? Who is today's person that we're going to hold up and say, this is the guy? I suggest that one of the most influential people in the environmental movement as it applies to the average American is this gentleman right here. Dr. Doug Tallamy is an entomologist, and then a college professor, and several years ago started writing books about how people ought to take care of the environment. I think the one that first attracted a lot of attention is a little book called Nature's Best Hope. It was the first thing that he wrote that I bought, and I read it and went, this is just common sense. This is just what the average person can read and understand and then turn around and actually do. What is it that is science-based but everyday life practical? So I'm going to say that right now, as I look at who all's out there making knowledge available to the public, this is the guy that I'm going to say is the number one right now. Now, Doug Tallamy would have a few things to say about your yard, no matter how it is right now. So I think now we need to move to what is a yard. Now, maybe that picture right there is a pretty good representation of that idea of a yard. A nice house with a big front yard that's perfectly manicured, not a weed in sight, grass, and a few specimen trees and some flower beds right up there against the building. How did we get to thinking that that was the perfect yard? Well, now that actually goes back to about World War II, when the American dream of everybody having their own home and everybody having that nice, neat little yard, and then the realization that communities could be one nice, neat little yard after another. And that was the birth of the subdivision. And then it was like, oh, it's going to be prettier if everybody's looks just about the same. And that was the rise of the horticulture industry and the landscape business and the HOA. And so we have moved from it's my little piece of heaven to it's my obligation to make sure that I put enough chemicals on my lawn so that the grass grows, so that I have to hire somebody to come cut it and there aren't any bugs in it. So even though I wish I could see some birds, there's nothing here for them to eat that won't kill them. And maybe that's the kind of place that you used to live in. And unfortunately, to me, that's the kind of place that we could turn into up here if we're not careful. I live down a little road. It's 3.5 miles from the highway to the end of my dead end road. And I can see the various attitudes of people all up and down the road. I can see the attitude of me and a couple of my Master Gardener friends and our signs that we put out that say, no mow. And you know, they came yesterday and they mowed my little road. Except for the places that have signs that say no mow, and they skipped them. So the little remnant prairie is okay, and the wildflowers are okay along a little bit of that road. Now, there are other parts of that road where every 2 weeks, the hired man goes out there and runs the zero turn up and down and leaves the grass 1 inch tall. Another place where The mower is set a little bit higher. It's maybe set about 3 inches tall, which allows the wildflowers to set one flower. And as soon as that one flower is blooming, along comes the lawnmower. There's the places that have a lot of slope to them. Nobody mows there except the county. But yesterday when they came through that real slopey spot, with those batwing mowers that can tip up and down, the way the wheels of that thing gouged into the dirt, not only did they wipe out the community of Palafoxia, which is one of the few fall blooming wildflowers that we have, they left gouges that will wash away in the next rain, which will probably be 15 minutes from now if things go like they've been. How far do we need to go as individuals and as a community and even as a county to make sure that the way we're managing our own land and our public land is right for the environment? You can call it a lot of different things. I have seen it called meadowscaping, wildscaping, chaos gardening.
That's my place.
And the older it gets, the better this sounds. And the farther away you get from those landscape companies that are going to charge you an arm and a leg to kill everything except that monoculture of grass that needs too much water, maybe it is time to look into our attitude and how we have our own area. So Doug Tallamy has come up with a thing to call this idea. He suggested that if everybody, or even if half of us, would do the right thing in whatever amount of land we have, be that a patio or 100 acres, whatever you got, that it would be like adding another national park to what we have as a culture. But it would be a homegrown national park right there in your own yard. Base it on the premise that individuals can have a measurable, positive or negative influence on the environment as a whole. We know that you can be a negative influence on your environment. We need to understand you can be a positive influence on the environment as a whole just as easily, maybe even easier. But if you want to be part of this idea, you need to be ready to take action that is appropriate for you. Everything isn't the same. What you can accomplish is not necessarily what I can do. But we need to understand that change is hard. You may have to pick up a frog. Maybe out there in your yard, there is a tree that somebody else planted before you bought that place. And maybe it's not the right tree. Maybe it's a Bradford pear. Maybe you have found out that that's an invasive species. It's bad. It's not going to live very long. It's going to fall on your car, and you need to take it out. But that isn't going to be easy because in the springtime, it's pretty. Or maybe you planted a tallow tree. It's pretty in the fall, you say, oh, let's call it a popcorn tree. And then you say, oh, it's invasive. No, it's not invasive. I've never seen it make any babies. You've never watched those seeds float downstream. I have tallow trees that I'm fighting in my back pasture because there's a mother tallow tree upstream somewhere. But change is not easy. You've invested time and money in what you've got, and it's hard for us to admit that we've made mistakes. So, whatever level you're on, whether you're just sitting back there thinking about it, talking about it, or pointing your fingers for somebody else to do something, or maybe you're going to be the one that's out there with the axe and the plow. Think about what you can do. What are reasonable Homegrown National Park goals for your property? Well, I'd say one goal that is reasonable is for your yard to be part of the ecosystem. I belong to a number of Facebook groups, and I see what people ask about. And they'll show a picture. A couple of days ago, it was a picture of the leaves on a redbud tree. And they had all these perfect little circles cut out of them. And of course, the poster was up in arms. What's wrong with my tree? What's doing this? Why, how can I kill it? Well, those were leafcutter bees, one of our native species, building their homes. Your tree is part of the ecosystem. Rejoice in those little holes. Don't be worried about them. If you keep in mind that it takes maybe 6,000 caterpillars to raise a nest of chickadee babies, you can't be out there worried about every little bug you see and then complain that you don't have the birds that you used to have. You can't have it both ways. A good goal is a yard that is 70% native plants. Now, if your trees are native, you're most of the way there, aren't you? And if your lawn is smaller than it used to be, and maybe part of what you're calling lawn is now native ground cover instead of St. Augustine grass, you're part of the way there. And pretty soon you've met your 70% native goal, and you can still have those pretty colorful annuals that you want to put out in the spring. That's perfectly all right, because the overall big picture is that you have gone mostly native. While you've done that, you now have a yard that uses less water. Do you realize that lawns are the #1 irrigated crop in the United States? That's crazy. We use more water to irrigate our lawns than we do to grow corn. That's crazy. We're also going to be using fewer chemicals. Maybe not no chemicals, but fewer chemicals. And so forth. Think of all the ways you're going to save time and energy and money and be a better steward of the land that has been placed in your hands. Okay, I'm ready to get started. I'm on board. I think maybe I've loaded up. I think maybe I'm doing some of the right things already, but I don't know what to do next. Let's look at a list of actions. Wouldn't it be nice if somebody just wrote a workbook so that you could look through there and check off what you've already done and see what you could practically do next? Wouldn't that be convenient? Guess what? Somebody did. I love books. I love gardening books. I usually buy 2 or 3 gardening books every year. I I have I have not measured how many feet of gardening books I own. And then if I added the gardening books and the wildlife books and the field guides, I've got a bookcase that's, well, actually 2 bookcases that's pretty full. But sometimes you buy a big, beautiful new book and you look through it and you appreciate it, and you put it on the shelf and you seldom go back to it. This is one that if you get this book, you'll have it there and you will have it dog-eared and check-marked and worn out in a couple of years. It's called Nature's Action Guide. And this is it. It is written like a workbook. What to do, how to do it, page after page. And it is not written from any particular part of the country. It would be equally useful in Central Texas or Maine. Okay, I really have not found a book that I would more heartily recommend than this one right here. Now, I'm going to go through and show you what some of the action steps are in this book. And they're not in the book in exactly a logical order. So they kind of jump around. But when you're working through the book, that's not a problem. Here's the first action. Isn't that easy? Turn off the lights. Turn off the outside lights that aren't actually needed. Why? It's pretty. I've spent a lot of money on these outdoor lights that I've got. And that skyscraper, it looks so cool at night with every office light on. That's because you're not picking up all the dead birds on the sidewalk every morning. Outside lights disrupt bird movement a lot. We don't realize this perhaps, but bird migration happens mostly at night, and outdoor lighting is very disruptive. So the first thing that you can do as a homeowner and say, I have taken a step, is look at your own outdoor lighting and ask yourself, what part of it is needed and is important? What part of it can be modified so that all the light goes down where it's needed instead of out into the upper atmosphere? There are various kinds of outdoor lighting, and some is worse than others. And what part of this outdoor lighting can I simply turn off at 9 o'clock at night when I'm ready to go to bed? I don't need to be lighting all of this area all of the time. Well, all the steps are not that simple. How about protect your wildlife habitat? Thinking back to those birds, do you know that birds crash into windows and they stun themselves, don't they? And then sometimes they get up and they fly off and they die somewhere else. Bird strikes on windows, very, very, very unfortunate, but there are things you can do to reduce the likelihood of it happening. I'm going to show you in a little bit something called a bucket of doom. It's for mosquitoes. But what if a squirrel fell in? All it takes is a stick for him to crawl out on. Think about ways that the animals that might be in your yard could hurt themselves and fix it to where that won't be a problem. Not usually a very difficult thing. Now, this one can be big, but it's very important. If you have a great big yard, think of ways to shrink it. Now, there are several things you have to plan for here. One is, how do you get rid of a lawn that's already there? How are you going to get rid of that grass? There are several ways to do it. Some of them use chemicals, some of them use covering it up. Some of them are faster than others. But if you're going to shrink your lawn, that means some grass is going to need to die. Make a good plan, because what are you going to put there instead of lawn? You're going to have a bigger flower bed. You're going to mow around it. Think about what shape it ought to be so that it's easy to mow around. Curves are good. So planning, step by step, get the amount of your yard that is lawn grass reduced and something better put in its place. I'm very interested in native plants and therefore invasive plants. And so I was glad to see that one very important action to take is to remove invasive plants. Now, you understand that an invasive plant, by definition, is a non-native plant that, because of its behavior, is a danger, is a threat to the environment or to human health. So it is both a mixture of being non-native and behaving in an aggressive way. So every non-native plant is not an invasive plant, but a native plant by definition cannot be invasive. A native plant can be aggressive, okay? That is a word that describes that they want to spread, they want to take over area beyond where you meant for them to be. But if you're going to use the word invasive, please use it correctly. You had a question.
Yes, ma'am. Outside in the flower bed here are the Mexican petunias.
Ooh, buddy.
In Houston, and I love them because they're so beautiful, but they are huge and they grow so fast.
If you want Mexican petunias, try not to want anything else. Because given a few years, that's pretty much what you're going to have.
But is that considered invasive or is that native?
Okay, here's the clue. Mexican petunia.
This used to be Mexico.
Point taken. All right. Here's a better example. Chinese tallow tree. The majority of plants that we worry about right now that are invasives are Asian. And a whole lot of the plants that are invasive were brought here on purpose because somebody thought they had a good reason for being here. Some of them were brought here as ornamentals through the horticulture trade. Some of them were brought here through agriculture, thinking that they were going to be maybe good crops. But they didn't behave correctly and they got out of hand. And the thing, invasive plants very often have very few enemies. And so they don't fit into this new environment in a peaceful way, the way they did back home. Mm-hmm. Kudzu, an excellent example of a plant that was brought here, and then it got out of hand. Here's another one. Up and down the roadsides, in the ditches, you know, that stuff that grows real tall that we refer to as cane. Okay, arundo or river cane is not a native plant. And we may not think a whole lot about it because we see it just here and there around culverts. But if you were down on the lower Brazos River, you would see what happens when that stuff becomes a monoculture, and as far as the eye can see, that's what there is.
Especially in Big Bend.
Crazy, and yes. Tallow trees took over south of Houston, out 288. These plants, as long as there's just a few of them, you don't think much of it, but then they get out of control. Bamboo, all kinds of bamboo. Some are worse than others. All of them are bad. So Chinese privet. Privet is a really bad. You find it growing just out in the woods where it's like, how did it get here? All right. Nandina, not the nice hybrid dwarf nandinas, but the big old original, rather tall, bushy nandinas. See them out in the woods. Toxic, you know. Chinaberry trees. The list goes on and on. There is a website, if you want to know what is considered invasive in Texas, TexasInvasives.org, I guess. Look them up. They all need to be removed. There's something better for every one of them. Identify your keystone plants. Now, keystone plant might be a new term for you. A keystone plant is one that has a lot of ecological value. It is a host for a lot of different insects, or its nectar is available for a lot of different insects and hummingbirds, or it provides some additional type of environmental service to a lot of different kinds of animals. So a keystone plant is good to have. The more keystone type plants you can have, the more environment is going on in your yard. If you say, well, what is one environmental keystone plant that I could have? Probably the number one thing is an oak tree. And it doesn't really matter what kind of oak tree, but probably if I were, say, landscaping a yard and I wanted to put a tree, a specimen tree, I would recommend something like a Shumard oak, because it has that beautiful form, beautiful color, very well adapted, and it's an oak tree. Monterey oak is becoming very popular. So find out, of all the kinds of plants that you might choose from, which are the most likely to be of environmental importance, and go for them.
Is the Monterey oak, is that a big leaf or small?
Monterey oak is pretty small leaf. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
There's an NRCS under the Web Circle survey. If you put your address, it will list the native.
That's a very good source. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to get to a bunch of sources. Yeah.
They come out to your house.
Yeah.
They have it online. It's the Web Soil survey.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. Also choose plants for specialized pollinators. Let's say that you really love hummingbirds. You know, when you start adding it up, you might be spending a lot of money on sugar. I remember the year that I spent $1.50 on seeds for the red Texas sage, Salvia costanea. My sugar bill went down by 50%. Plant native plants that hummingbirds love. Watch your sugar bill go down. And guess what? It's better for the birds. It's better for the birds. You get to see the hummingbird in their native, in their natural environment, which is even more fun than watching them, and you're not having to scrub out those feeders because you know you need to do that.
Yep.
Action 7, create and preserve pupation and nesting sites. Here's some good news. All that hard work in the fall, raking and burning all of those leaves, or at least shredding them, you don't need to be doing that. You can save that effort because that's where insects spend the winter. You cannot just love the beautiful butterfly and not tolerate the caterpillar. You got to provide for them through their whole life cycle, through their whole year. You got to realize that plants spend the winter in stems and under leaves. Do you have to leave your whole yard a mess? No. But you've got to be reasonable in what you leave and what you clean up. Garden hygiene, getting out there in your vegetable garden and clearing up every little speck of stuff that a bug might spend the winter. Now, that might make sense if you're trying to keep the insect population down in your vegetable garden. But if you've got an acre of yard and you're trying to do that everywhere, not only are you working yourself to death, but you're actually not doing a good thing.
One of the wildlife management report is the number of snags you lose for nesting.
Yes.
Per acre.
And how
Wildlife management report.
and how many snags can we leave? Since 2011, we have had a die-off of trees of huge proportion. And a tree may present a danger as it dies and begins to shed branches, and you may have to do something about it, but very often that tree reaches a point where it's just one big stem, and even if it fell, it wouldn't hit anything. If you'll just leave it, that's where your woodpeckers are going to nest. So adjust your thinking about how much work you really need to do and how much you need to let Mother Nature handle some of that. Action number 8, include water and protect the watershed. Including water in your landscape is remarkably important, even if you're in an area that has ponds and lakes. But if you're going to include what we will call a water feature, there are some things that you need to keep in mind. Let's say that you decide you want a bird bath. Birds can drown in a bird bath. Be sure they're not too deep. A lot of people who, design beautiful bird baths have not considered the safety of the bird. They have been considering the beauty of the little sculpture that they've created. So some pebbles in the bottom of that bird bath so the little bird can stand in the water without drowning. A simple thing. Keep that bird bath clean. You don't want to be growing mosquitoes, do you? How about the dish under the plant? You know how convenient that is to just run some water in there for that plant? Well, what happens if that water stands for a couple of weeks? You're raising mosquitoes, aren't you? What happens if you get a big population of mosquitoes in your yard and you're living in one of those subdivisions? What does the city do? They come and fog. Now, here's the thing. When some of you who are about my age were little, running behind the fogging truck was a thing.
Never had fogging.
We thought it was fun.
I can't believe they had fogging trucks.
Yep,
I never saw a fogging truck.
I did.
But I didn't live in the neighborhood. But
You're not old enough.
No, but she's much older than me, and she saw fogging trucks.
Yeah, fogging
I
trucks are,
You're
yeah,
too young.
Well, I never lived in the neighborhood. I never lived in the neighborhood either.
yeah. Now,
Yeah, they don't. It's our state bird.
that's right.
It's the state bird.
Yeah. Okay, so the problem is if you have, and this is done everywhere, the fogging truck, the stuff in it, it's not specific to mosquitoes. It's killing everything, which means that all of those little caterpillars that you needed for the little baby chickadees are dead now. So even if the bird catches them and feeds them to the chickadees, now the chickadees are dead. So what can you do about all those mosquitoes? Well, there's a good suggestion. Dragonflies. Or you could create it, the bucket of doom. Now, you can go to the Homegrown National Park website and you can print yourself off a label, a sign to go on this thing in case your neighbors might be confused. You need a 5-gallon bucket. Dark colors work better. Any color will do. Black is best. A 5-gallon bucket. Put some dead plant material in it, like dead leaves, grass clippings. You can even put a pinch of yeast in there if you really want to get it going good. Okay? Back when I was in college, we were my biology department, we studied mosquitoes a lot. And we grew those mosquitoes when they were really tiny, when they were little wigglers, on yeast solutions. Yeah. And then you don't want to know what we did after they were adults. But it was one of the job of the graduate students. Okay. There was a box with a sleeve and you stuck your arm in there.
We paid them well.
Your major professor told you to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, you didn't have much choice. It's Tuesday. It's your turn to feed the mosquitoes. Oh yeah. Well, what are you gonna do? You're gonna put some water in here up to about there. Okay. You're gonna put a stick in it so that the squirrel can crawl out. Okay. And you're going to put 1/4 of one mosquito dunk in it. 1/4 of one of those is all it takes. Yeah, just break them and break them. All right, mosquito dunk. That's about $10 for the package at Lowe's. Okay. The cool thing about this stuff is this is actually a subspecies of the same stuff that we refer to as BT, the organic spray that we can use in our vegetable gardens on caterpillars. All right. But this is the BT that kills mosquito larvae. It is safe for birds. It is safe for that squirrel. Yeah. Yep. Well, there are not going to be tadpoles growing in here because you're going to get the frog out in case he jumps in. But yeah, if you're putting mosquito dunks in bigger places, yes, they're safe. It's only going to kill mosquitoes and other things that are similar to that. So the thing is that the mosquitoes going to come into this area. They're going to lay their eggs preferentially in this kind of an environment. The mosquito duck bacteria are going to kill them. They'll never mature, and you have just wiped out mosquitoes for a wide area. A few of these in a yard, and if a neighborhood would get together, then that spraying truck becomes absolutely obsolete. You don't need.
About half.
About a half. Yeah, about a half.
And you just
Yeah.
stick it out in the yard or
Just-
patio or?
Just put it in an inconspicuous place. Mosquitoes are going to find it.
How long before you replenish what
You don't need to.
you have it just lasts?
Yeah, you don't. Well, if you want to put another quarter in there in a month, yeah, because you may have to refill. Not in this rain, but add some more water if the faucet ever gets turned off. But pretty self-perpetuating.
Do those
And
ducks have an expiration date?
Hmm?
Do those ducks have an expiration
Storage and disposal, pesticide disposal. I do not see it. I do not quickly see it. Yeah. So it's $4 for the bucket, $10 for enough mosquito dunks for you and your neighbor for a whole season. It's a good answer.
The dog happens to drink it, it's not a big deal.
No big deal. No big deal. Safe.
But, goldfish.
I have goldfish in all of my stock tanks. Same kind of a deal. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't.
Okay, design a layered landscape filled with plants. Now here's something, just the way that Mother Nature works. If you will plan to have in your yard a variety of different heights of plants, you will most naturally have a lot of different kinds of plants, and biodiversity is a goal that you should have. So design a layered landscape that's filled with plants. Go ahead and plant a lot. The idea of the way you ought to landscape is one little flowering plant, and then 2 feet away from it, another little one, and 2 feet away from that, another little one, and the rest of it is all mulch. That's one way that landscape gets designed, but that's not Mother Nature's way. And when you design your landscape like that, you end up having to put more mulch every year, don't you? A well-designed flower bed only needs mulch once, and then to fill in gaps around new plantings. This idea of you've got to go out and buy bags and bags and bags of mulch every single year. No, you do not. You do not. Propagate or procure lots of keystone plants. We need to propagate more of our own plants. It's not hard. It's fun. You get what you want. You don't have to find 15 of those bushes you were looking for. All you have to find is 2 or 3 of them, and then go to work and propagate your own whenever you can, because unfortunately, finding the keystone plants you decide you need may not be as easy as it ought to be. Plant your landscape generously. Look at your budget, figure out what you can do, and then be generous. Be economical, but be generous in filling that area with lots of plants. As much as you can, use non-toxic home and yard products. Now, I will say that as a group, I think master gardeners, we tend to range from absolutely, I'm totally organic, you can't make me use a chemical, to I'm going to use what's going to work. And most of us are somewhere in between. We're as organic as we can be, provided it's working. So for most gardeners, most of us could probably use less in the way of chemicals. We could probably use fewer things and still get the job done. So we ought to at least be considering what are the management tools, what are the things that we could use other than those toxic chemicals. Jim will tell us what the letters IPM stand for. He's sleeping. Come back later and he'll teach you about integrated pest management. Manage your wildlife habitat. Now, you know that wildlife is going to come into your yard. Sometimes more than you want. If I were going to ask you, stand up if you know that feral hogs are a problem. That would be everybody in this room, wouldn't it? No? You don't know that feral hogs are a problem?
I hear people talk about it, but we have 21 acres. I've never seen a feral hog. I've never had.
Oh, come get ours.
Quarters of it is
I've never
wooded.
seen one either. We've only had them once in 35 years.
Bring your stock.
Your time's coming.
Okay, 'cause I haven't.
If you have never had a feral hog problem on 35 acres,
You're blessed.
you are blessed. You are blessed. That could be you don't have a water source, or you're not in a travel area, or you have them fenced out and you're maintaining your fences. Yeah, which right there is a way to manage your wildlife habitat, isn't it? Fence out what you cannot tolerate coming in. Is there any such thing as a deer-proof plant? No. There are deer-resistant plants, but there are no deer-proof plants. No, there are no goat-proof plants. So manage your wildlife habitat in a good and reasonable way. Action 14th, build acceptance for nature's natural look. Now, out here in Leon County, that's not hard, is it? But have you lived in a place where it would have been hard? Those three little letters, HOA. You have to understand that the history of the Homeowners Association goes back to basically World War II. And a lot of the rules are that old. And it is, even our state legislature has recognized that homeowners association rules can't just tell them you can't have native plants. But it's sometimes a real battle. And sometimes some diplomacy is needed, and some attitude adjustment is needed if you live in an area that is governed like that. And frankly, homeowners associations might be the reason some of y'all are here. Yeah, but it is difficult. And finally, share, educate, and get involved. Okay, what are some reliable resources for information? The Homegrown National Park has become an organization. It's got a website. It's got a big website with a lot of information on it. So that would be a place to go. A lot of master naturalists and master gardener groups are getting more involved in this kind of event, this kind of thinking. That particular slide is from, I believe that is up around Dallas, an excellent article by a master gardener on their Master Gardener Facebook page. An organization that you might not be too familiar with, but is very involved, is the Xerces Society, Xerces, the Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation. Their big thing, their big push right now is fireflies, and how, we used to have lots of fireflies, and now it's kind of rare. Why is that? So that's their big educational push right now. How about is anybody in the horticulture business listening? The answer to that is yes. The horticulture business here and there is beginning to understand that more and more people want information about native plants if they were available. So unfortunately, sometimes you get online and you start looking at these things, and you find just what you want, except they're in Minnesota. So what's going on locally? One group that I found, and I went searching for these kinds of things. There is a place called the Wild Ones, and they're trying to put together a nursery list from the whole United States. People, let them know, where can you go buy native plants? Where are the native plant nurseries? And they're posting them state by state. Guess what? The Texas list is short. If you were in Texas and you wanted to go to a native nursery, no, if you wanted to go to several native nurseries all the same day, where would you go? Austin. Unfortunately, the native plants that they would have for sale in Austin are not the ones that you want to bring home to Leon County. But that is the one area in the state that there are many native nurseries. Most of us here in Texas are very limited in how many within a reasonable driving range we can go to find an entire nursery devoted to native plants. That doesn't mean you couldn't find some native plants in an ordinary nursery. It's just a little harder. What happens when you go in your favorite nursery and say, "Excuse me, where are the native plants?" The what? Well, then we have there's some way over there. I'm telling you, nurseries are in business to make money. They are a business. If people come in asking for a particular thing, enough people asking for the same thing, they're much more likely to have that thing. It kind of requires, if you were a business person, you'd feel the same way. I can't stock all of these things if nobody's going to buy them. But if you start hearing, where are the native plants? Do you have a native department? Is this native? You start hearing that again and again, you'll start stocking those things.
I will say that Kim Lacey, our president, has been very influential with our Bobo nursery about stocking, and she's been able to influence them stock some. Also, she's very careful about labeling the Texas.
That's right.
Kim is really very influential in that position. And if you go to Bobo,
Ask for Kim. Yeah, that's right. But that is illustrating that, when you go to Lowe's and you ask that same question, the person you're talking to probably was selling lingerie last week. Yeah. Yeah, I just water this stuff. I don't know what it is. Yeah. So finding reliable resources for products and information is not easy. Um, Start with, where can I go buy some seeds? I like to grow things from seeds. Um, here are some that are here in Texas. Probably our best source here in Texas is Native American Seed Company out in Junction, Texas. Very reliable, very reliable. Um, Also, a favorite is going to be Wild Seed Farms. Now, I will say that the Wild Seed Farms catalog has excellent instructions in how to plant native seeds, but they do sell non-natives as well. They're pretty clearly marked, but just because they have them in the catalog doesn't guarantee that they're a native. You have to read. Oh, it's wonderful.
It's expensive. People that have a wine tasting room.
Oh, it's a
blast.
I haven't been there in about probably 12 years. We took a road trip over there and spent the night, and it was a great road trip, especially in the spring when a lot of the wildflowers are blooming. Yes. Um, um, be very careful if you buy wildflower mixes, especially if you buy them at big box stores, because just because it says wildflower doesn't mean Native American wildflower. And just because it's a Native American wildflower doesn't mean it's a Texas wildflower. So if you go to Walmart or you go to Lowe's and you buy a wildflower mix, a lot of the things that come up are not going to be American, or they're not going to be Texas. They may be pretty, but if what you were going for was native Texas, you may be disappointed. So there are reliable sources of information out there. You just have to do some homework before you go shopping. Make a list of the things that you're really interested in, and then go see if you can find those things. If you're looking for trees, you might try the tree farm that we've got right here north of Centerville. But now a lot of the stuff that they've got is not native. But again, if you know what you're looking for, you know what you're shopping for, you might be able to find it. Well, where would you go? I would recommend the Texas Forest Service website. Has a very excellent section on trees and enough information about each tree that you would know whether or not it fit into your landscape or not. And I will also mention there is a place, it does not have a retail store. They ship bare root plants, but Leg Creek Farms. It's over near Nacogdoches. They have excellent fruit trees. They have some native trees, and everything is adapted to Texas. They're from near here, and so everything they sell is likely to be well adapted to our area. And I was looking at them just yesterday, and right now they've got free shipping. So go get on the list. They ship in the fall, they dig, and they ship bare root ready to go into the ground. So that's a place that you may not have ever heard of. Yes.
You know, in the past, is it the Harbor Foundation?
Oh, the Arbor Day Foundation.
They were giving out free trees every year.
Yeah, the stuff they give away. Oh my goodness. Save your donation. The stuff that comes is not in good condition, and might or might not be native. I mean, that they might ship you a crepe myrtle.
Well, they usually give you a list where
Yeah, you can pick from, but now there are some nurseries that do an absolutely amazing job of shipping plants. and they come to you in wonderful condition. I cannot brag about the Arbor Day Foundation. The experience with them is plant them and pray. You know. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Maybe you did. Yeah. Okay. All right. I am going to leave you with this idea and again an encouragement to, if this is interesting to you, start by buying this little workbook. You are going to find 100 different ideas in there of things that you can do and feel good about. But this is one of the quotations that I really, really love. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. So that's it for today.